old house. In the street, up there, was a very old house. It was almost 300 years old, for that might be known by reading the great beam on which the date of the year was carved, together with tulips and hop-binds. There were whole verses spelt as in former times. And over every window was a distorted face cut out of the beam. The one story stood forward a great way over the other, and directly under the eaves was a leaden spout with a dragon's head. The rainwater should have run out of the mouth, but it ran out of the belly, for there was a hole in the spout. All the other houses in the street were so new and so neat, with large window panes and smooth walls, one could easily see that they would have nothing to do with the old house. They certainly thought, "How long is that old decayed thing to stand there as a spectacle in the street? And then the projecting windows stand so far out that no one can see from our windows what happens in that direction. The steps are as broad as those of a palace, and as high as to a church tower. The iron railings look just like the door to an old family vault, and then they have brass tops. That's so stupid." On the other side of the street were also new and neat houses, and they thought just as the others did. But at the window opposite the old house there sat a little boy with fresh rosy cheeks and bright beaming eyes. He certainly liked the old house best, and that both in sunshine and moonshine. And when he looked across at the wall where the mortar had fallen out, he could sit and find out there the strangest figures imaginable, exactly as the street had imagined before, with steps, projecting windows, and pointed gables. He could see soldiers with halberds, and spouts where the water ran like dragons and serpents. That was a house to look at, and there lived an old man who wore plush breeches, and he had a coat with large brass buttons, and a wig that one could see was a real wig. Every morning there came an old fellow to him, who put his rooms in order and went on errands. Otherwise, the old man in the plush breeches was quite alone in the old house. Now and then he came to the window and looked out, and the little boy nodded to him, and the old man nodded again, and so they became acquaintances. And then they were friends, although they had never spoken to each other, but that made no difference. The little boy heard his parents say, "The old man opposite is very well off, but he is so very, very lonely." The Sunday following, the little boy took something and wrapped it up in a piece of paper, went downstairs and stood in the doorway. And when the man who went on errands came past, he said to him, "I say, master, will you give this to the old man over the way from me? I have 2 pewter soldiers. This is one of them, and he shall have it, for I know he is so very, very lonely." And the old errand man looked quite pleased, nodded, and took the pewter soldier over to the old house. Afterwards there came a message. It was to ask if the little boy himself had not a wish to come over and pay a visit. And so he got the permission of his parents, and then went over to the old house. And the brass balls on the iron railings shone much brighter than ever. One would have thought they were polished on account of the visit. and it was as if the carved-out trumpeters, for there were trumpeters who stood in tulips carved out on the door, blew with all their might. Their cheeks appeared so much rounder than before. Yes, they blew. Tra-ta-ra-tra, the little boy comes, tra-ta-ra-tra, and then the door opened. The whole passage was hung with portraits of knights in armour, and ladies in silken gowns, and the armour rattled, and the silken gowns rustled. And then there was a flight of stairs which went a good way upwards, and a little way downwards, and then one came on a balcony which was in a very dilapidated state, sure enough, with large holes and long crevices, but grass grew there, and leaves grew out of them altogether, for the whole balcony outside, the yard and the walls were overgrown with so much green stuff that it looked like a garden, only a balcony. Here stood old flower pots with faces and asses' ears, and the flowers grew just as they liked. One of the pots was quite overrun on all sides with pinks, that is to say, with the green part. Shoot stood by shoot, and it said quite distinctly, "The air has cherished me, the sun has kissed me, and promised me a little flower on Sunday, a little flower on Sunday." And then they entered a chamber where the walls were covered with hog's leather and printed with gold flowers. "The gilding decays, but hog's leather stays," said the walls. And there stood easy chairs with such high backs, and so carved out, and with arms on both sides. Sit down, said they. Ugh, how I creak! Now I shall certainly get the gout, like the old clothes press. Ugh!" And then the little boy came into the room where the projecting windows were, and where the old man sat. "I thank you for the pewter soldier, my little friend," said the old man, "and I thank you because you came over to me." Thanky, or cranky, sounded from all the furniture. There was so much of it that each article stood in the other's way to get a look at the little boy. In the middle of the wall hung a picture representing a beautiful lady, so young, so glad, but dressed quite as in former times, with clothes that stood quite stiff, and with powder in her hair. She neither said thanky, nor cranky, but looked with her mild eyes at the little boy, who directly asked the old man, "Where did you get her?" "Yonder, at the broker's," said the old man, "where there are so many pictures hanging. No one knows or cares about them, for they are all of them buried. But I knew her in bygone days, and now she has been dead and gone these 50 years. Under the picture, in a glazed frame, there hung a bouquet of withered flowers. They were almost 50 years old. They looked so very old. The pendulum of the great clock went to and fro, and the hands turned, and everything in the room became still older, but they did not observe it. "They say at home," said the little boy, "that you were so very, very lonely." "Oh," said he, "the old thoughts, with what they may bring with them, come and visit me, and now you also come. I am very well off." Then he took a book with pictures in it down from the shelf. There were whole long processions and pageants, with the strangest characters, which one never sees nowadays. Soldiers like the knave of clubs, and citizens waving flags. The tailors had theirs, with a pair of shears held by 2 lions, and the shoemakers theirs, without boots, but with an eagle that had 2 heads. For the shoemakers must have everything so that they can say, "It is a pair." Yes, that was a picture book. The old man now went into the other room to fetch preserves, apples and nuts. Yes, it was delightful over there in the old house. "I cannot bear it any longer," said the pewter soldier, who sat on the drawers. "It is so lonely and melancholy here. But when one has been in a family circle, one cannot accustom oneself to this life. I cannot bear it any longer. The whole day is so long, and the evenings are still longer. Here it is not at all as it is over the way at your home, where your father and mother spoke so pleasantly, and where you and all your sweet children made such a delightful noise. Nay, how lonely the old man is. Do you think that he gets kisses? Do you think he gets mild eyes, or a Christmas tree? He will get nothing but a grave. I can bear it no longer." "You must not let it grieve you so much," said the little boy. "I find it so very delightful here. And then all the old thoughts, with what they may bring with them, they come and visit here. Yes, it's all very well, but I see nothing of them, and I don't know them," said the pewter soldier. "I cannot bear it." "But you must," said the little boy. Then in came the old man, with the most pleased and happy face, the most delicious preserves, apples and nuts, and so the little boy thought no more about the pewter soldier. The little boy returned home happy and pleased, and weeks and days passed away. And nods were made to the old house and from the old house. And then the little boy went over there again. The carved trumpeters blew, "Tra-ta-ra-tra, there is the little boy, tra-ta-ra-tra," and the swords and the armour on the knights' portraits rattled, and the silk gowns rustled. The hog's leather spoke, and the old chairs had the gout in their legs and the rheumatism in their backs. Ugh! It was exactly like the first time, for over there one day and 1 hour were just like another. "I cannot bear it," said the pewter soldier. "I have shed pewter tears. It is too melancholy. Rather let me go to the wars and lose arms and legs. It would at least be a change. I cannot bear it longer. Now I know what it is to have a visit from one's old thoughts, with what they may bring with them. I have had a visit from mine, and you may be sure it was no pleasant thing in the end. I was at last about to jump down from the drawers. I saw you all over there at home so distinctly, as if you really were here. It was again that Sunday morning. All you children stood before the table and sung your psalms, as you do every morning. You stood devoutly with folded hands, and father and mother were just as pious. And then the door was opened, and little sister Mary, who is not 2 years old yet, and who always dances when she hears music or singing of whatever kind it may be, was put into the room, though she ought not to have been there, and then she began to dance, but could not keep time, because the tones were so long. And then she stood first on one leg, and bent her head forwards, and then on the other leg, and bent her head forwards. But all would not do. You stood very seriously altogether, although it was difficult enough, but I laughed to myself, and then I fell off the table, and got a bump, which I have still, for it was not right of me to laugh. But the whole now passes before me again in thought, and everything that I have lived to see, and these are the old thoughts with what they may bring with them. Tell me if you still sing on Sundays. Tell me something about little Mary, and how my comrade, the other pewter soldier, lives. Yes, he is happy enough, that's sure. I cannot bear it any longer. You were given away as a present, said the little boy. You must remain. Can you not understand that? The old man now came with a drawer in which there was so much to be seen, both tin boxes and balsam boxes, old cards, so large and so gilded, such as one never sees them now. And several drawers were opened, and the piano was opened. It had landscapes on the inside of the lid, and it was so hoarse when the old man played on it. And then he hummed a song. Yes, she could sing that, said he, and nodded to the portrait which he had bought at the broker's, and the old man's eyes shone so bright. I will go to the wars! I will go to the wars! Shouted the pewter soldier as loud as he could, and threw himself off the drawers right down onto the floor. What became of him? The old man sought, and the little boy sought. He was away and stayed away. I shall find him, said the old man, but he never found him. The floor was too open. The pewter soldier had fallen through a crevice, and there he lay as in an open tomb. That day passed, and the little boy went home, and that week passed, and several weeks too. The windows were quite frozen. The little boy was obliged to sit and breathe on them to get a peephole to the old house. And there the snow had blown into all the carved work and inscriptions. It lay quite up over the steps, just as if there was no one at home. Nor was there anyone at home. The old man was dead. In the evening there was a hearse seen before the door, and he was borne into it in his coffin. He was now to go out into the country, to lie in his grave. He was driven out there, but no one followed. All his friends were dead, and the little boy kissed his hand to the coffin as it was driven away. Some days afterwards there was an auction at the old house, and the little boy saw from his window how they carried the old knights and the old ladies away, the flower pots with the long ears, the old chairs, and the old clothes presses. Something came here, and something came there. The portrait of her who had been found at the broker's came to the broker's again, and there it hung, for no one knew her more. No one cared about the old picture. In the spring they pulled the house down, for as people said, it was a ruin. One could see from the street right into the room with the hog's leather hanging, which was slashed and torn, and the green grass and leaves about the balcony hung quite wild about the falling beams. And then it was put to rights. That was a relief, said the neighbouring houses. A fine house was built there, with large windows and smooth white walls. But before it, where the old house had in fact stood, was a little garden laid out, and a wild grapevine ran up the wall of the neighbouring house. Before the garden, there was a large iron railing with an iron door. It looked quite splendid, and people stood still and peeped in, and the sparrows hung by scores in the vine and chattered away at each other as well as they could. But it was not about the old house, for they could not remember it. So many years had passed, so many that the little boy had grown up to be a whole man, yet a clever man, and a pleasure to his parents. And he had just been married, and together with his little wife had come to live in the house here where the garden was. And he stood by her while she planted a field flower that she found so pretty. She planted it with her little hand and pressed the earth around it with her fingers. Ow! What was that? She had stuck herself. There sat something pointed straight out of the soft mould. It was, yes, guess, it was the pewter soldier, he that was lost up the old man's, and had tumbled and turned about amongst the timber and the rubbish, and had at last laid for many years in the ground. The young wife wiped the dirt off the soldier, first with a green leaf, and then with her fine handkerchief. It had such a delightful smell that it was to the pewter soldier just as if he had awakened from a trance. "Let me see him," said the young man. He laughed and then shook his head. "Nay, it cannot be he, but it reminds me of a story about a pewter soldier which I had when I was a little boy." And then he told his wife about the old house and the old man, and about the pewter soldier that he sent over to him because he was so very, very lonely. And he told it as correctly as it had really been, so that the tears came into the eyes of his young wife on account of the old house and the old man. "It may possibly be, however, that it is the same pewter soldier," said she. "I will take care of it and remember all that you have told me, but you must show me the old man's grave." "But I do not know it," said he, "and no one knows it. All his friends were dead. No one took care of it, and I was then a little boy." "How very, very lonely he must have been," said she. "Very, very lonely," said the pewter soldier, "but it is delightful not to be forgotten." "Delightful," shouted something close by, but no one except the pewter soldier saw that it was a piece of the hog's leather hangings. It had lost all its gilding. It looked like a piece of wet clay, but it had an opinion, and it gave it. "The gilding decays, but hog's leather stays." This the pewter soldier did not believe.
Today, we're going to escape to a romantic private island in the Caribbean for a night of relaxation, connection, and tranquility. Before we begin our journey, let us take a moment to find comfort in the space we are in. Allow your entire body to relax into the mattress. There is no need to carry tension here. Feel how truly incredible it is as the tension melts out of your body. Can you feel it dripping out of your fingertips, your neck, your shoulders? Enjoy the warm, cozy feeling of peace that replaces that tension. Relish in the sensation as it seems to relax those muscles even more. With every breath you take, savor the sweetness that washes over your body, from your head down to your toes. How wonderful it is just to be here. Your tasks for the day are done. And now, this moment is all about you giving yourself the peace and relaxation that you deserve. Now that we have found comfort in the space we are in, let us begin. Your journey to your own private island begins in the sky. You look out of the plane window at the clouds that seem to expand for miles. Each one is like a plush mountain of cotton, aglow with the brilliant golden light of the rising sun. You curl up against your partner. Their smooth hand intertwines with yours, giving you a gentle squeeze. You can feel their anticipation for the day and night ahead of you. Outside the window, you watch as the clouds begin to clear. The view below takes your breath away. The bright blue ocean is a mosaic of unbelievable shades. There is crystal blue water, so clear you can see schools of fish dancing just below. Darker patches of water dot the ocean, breaking up the light, shallow bits. Every inch of the sea seems to shine and sparkle in the sunlight. You gaze out as island after island passes under you. The white sand beaches seem to almost melt against the blue of the ocean. You can practically feel the warmth of the sand. You feel a tender kiss against your neck. Your love gazes up at you as you slide your hand around them, taking the sight of them in. Instead, we deserve this. You deserve this, they say. A sweet, honey-like warmth pulses through your body. They always make you feel so appreciated, so loved, so at home. Today is no different, but it feels even more special. As you come in for a landing, you hold your partner's hand a little tighter. The float plane lands gently on the calm, sparkling blue water. As the two of you step out, a joy sparks inside you. The second the plane door closes behind you, it'll just be the two of you. You won't see another person until tomorrow. It will be a private world all your own, made for loving, connecting, unwinding by each other's side. With the click of the door, you two are free. The island before you is stunning. A single green mountain sprouts up in the center of the island. The contrast of the bright green against the bright blue ocean and sky is like a painting. Something that seems too beautiful to actually exist in the world. palm trees dot the island, swaying ever so gently against the warm, soft Caribbean wind. You feel your toes sinking into the sand as the love of your life leads you to your bungalow. The warmth of the golden sand and your partner's company relaxes you. The bungalow extends out over the water on a smooth wooden dock. It's picture perfect, truly like something out of a movie. Your partner guides you further and further down the luxurious dock, both of you giggling like two kids in puppy love. The bungalow is a romantic getaway unlike any other. Its large open windows give you a breathtaking view of that sparkling ocean from bed. The bed itself is plush, with opulent white blankets and pillows. Your partner plops down into the soft bed and beckons you over to them, holding their arms out. In their embrace, the weight of the world melts away. Here, all that matters is the two of you and your love for each other. Truly, that's all that matters anyway. Life is easier with them by your side, and here, for the next 24 hours, life will be the easiest and most perfect it has ever been. I love you, your partner whispers, locking eyes with you. You feel your heart skip a beat as your body floods with joy. In their ethereal gaze, you see your solace, your best friend, your future. I love you too, you chime, bringing them in for a kiss. You feel an unbelievable connection as you intertwine with them. As the sun rises high into the sky, you wrap your arm around them as you two head out to enjoy all that the island has to offer. In the distance, in the sand, a luxurious daybed faces the water. It's an incredible sight. A plush daybed in the middle of paradise, placed there for you two to enjoy. Sheer white curtains billow in that sweet ocean breeze. You two sprawl out in the bed. Your partner offers you a coconut drink from the fridge beside the bed with a smile on their face. It's almost overwhelming how wonderful it is to see them so happy. Though you love their appearance and all that they are, there's something about being here that seems to make them glow. Here you are your most authentic selves, and it's even more clear how much you two are meant for one another. You wrap your arms around each other as you watch the waves dance their way to shore. The rhythm of the ocean is utterly calming. The waves fade out, then onto the shore, out to the sea, onto the shore, out to sea, onto the shore. You watch as each crystal clear wave brings new things to the sand. Little crabs scuttle over the rocks. Shiny shells that are all colours of the rainbow glisten in the sun and the water. Your partner points to each new thing that comes ashore with a type of wonder and excitement that's contagious. With every word that comes out of their mouth, you feel yourself falling deeper and deeper in love with them. You lay there, wrapped up in each other as the sun kisses your bodies. You talk to one another, the swaying palm trees and the ocean waves acting as a beautiful soundtrack to your conversation. You don't talk about work, about your life back home, about tasks or obligations. You find yourselves talking about the joys of life, about the love you have built together, about your dreams for the future. You are reminded of the important things in life, that the most important of all is having the person across from you as your companion through it all. You both begin to walk the length of the beach. Your hands find their way all over each other, from intertwining fingers to wrapping arms around each other's shoulders. You can't quite keep your hands away from them. And why should you? With each step in the sand, you feel more and more free. You look behind to see the long, winding trail of your footprints embedded in the sand, side by side. Your love stops you, taking both your hands and looking at you with a dreamy gaze. Wait, listen, they chime. You stop, locking eyes with them as you listen to the sounds all around you. Can you hear the palm trees? They ask in a delighted whisper. You take a moment to truly listen to the palm trees overhead. Their leaves twirl in the breeze, filling the air with their soothing song, pitter-pattering against one another like a tropical rain. Can you hear the waves? They ask, leaning even closer to you. You turn your attention to those stunning waves, listening to the relaxing roar of them finding their way to shore, kissing the sand, then retreating back to the ocean where they belong. Every movement of the waves seems to calm you more and more. Can you hear the birds? They ask, their breath tickling against your neck. You gaze up to see the birds floating from palm tree to palm tree. They are an unbelievable array of colors, reds and oranges and blues that seem to pop against the sky. Their song pops and rings through the air, carefree and beautiful, the true soundtrack of paradise. You realize for a moment how much you feel like those birds right now. You're weightless, fueled by the sun and the beauty of the company and land around you. You're carefree and joyful. I can, you whisper to your partner. For the next few hours, you walk the beaches, your hearts beat in sync with one another, a steady, comforting rhythm in your tiny world. The sun begins to dip lower and lower in the sky, but you feel no sorrow. You feel grateful, alive in brand new ways. You curl up in the bungalow with the love of your life as the sun begins to set. You watch as the sky and sea before you is painted in breathtaking colors. The horizon is bright yellow as your gaze travels further up into the sky. You see the oranges, then the pinks, then the purples and blues. The ocean reflects the brilliant scene above. What was once a sea of crystal blue is now a sea of vibrant orange. I'm so blessed to be able to do this with you. Your partner whispers against your lips. You're overcome by how blessed you feel, unbelievably blessed, in this little bungalow on this distant island with your special person. You feel so far away from the rest of the world. As the sun falls closer and closer to the horizon, the nighttime sounds fill the air. Crickets chirp behind you. The waves seem a little stronger now. A sense of peace washes over you and your partner. You crawl under the blankets, holding one another. Loving someone so deeply brings you a type of comfort you never imagined you would find. You run your hand through their hair and over their body. As the night goes on, you lay there for a long time in their company. You whisper your hopes and dreams to each other, completely vulnerable, completely free. The I love yous trickle out of your mouth unrestrained, like they never have before. You mean every single one, and you know your partner does as well. The sounds of the night seem to grow louder as you drift closer and closer to sleep. Under the comforting weight of the blankets, you feel your partner falling asleep. Their heart beats ever so gently against yours. For a moment, you watch their chest rise and fall. It's incredible how much you love them, how much you feel connected to them. The sounds of the tropical paradise seem to fade into the distance as you listen to their rhythmic, soft breathing. It has been a perfect day in this perfect world. You feel yourself relax around them as the tranquil blanket of sleep covers you, inviting you to refresh for the next day. When morning comes, you feel no sorrow that you'll be leaving the island. The sun rises behind you as you walk ahead of your partner, leading them to the beach. You glance behind to see the love of your life smiling at you, glowing brighter than the rising sun that silhouettes them. As you two wait for the plane, you can't help but look at your footprints all over the island. You two have left your mark here, embedded in the sand, and you will take the connection you have formed together wherever you go from here. Your body and mind are revitalized and comfortable in a way you never thought possible. As your partner kisses your forehead one more time, you realize the lasting effects of your time together here. You are loved. You are at peace. I hope you have enjoyed your romantic journey to your private island with a loved one by your side. Hopefully, you have found some comfort and are closer to a fulfilling night of sleep. Please feel free to join me tomorrow night for another sleep story. Until then, sweet dreams.
Tonight, I will be your guide as we journey to lush, fog-shrouded mountains to relax and unwind with the Greek myth of star-crossed lovers, Echo and Narcissus. we will journey through forests of cedar and pine, hear tales of beauty near still, glassy pools, and experience a tale of love unlike any other. Before we begin, however, let us take a moment to relax and find comfort in the space that we are in, here and now. Close your eyes and allow your body to sink into the mattress beneath you. For a moment, I want you to try and imagine a floating orb made of a thick, cool mist. Imagine that orb bobbing through the air, slowly and gracefully, until it just barely brushes the crown of your head. Breathe in and out. In and out. As this orb slowly moves down your body, bringing a refreshing, cool chill with it everywhere that it travels. And as it travels, pay attention to how your muscles feel in each and every body part. As the orb of fog brushes down your arms, turn your attention to the muscles there. With that gentle touch of that orb, feel your hands, arms, shoulders, and wrists relax and unravel, sinking deeper into the mattress than you thought possible. Feel the mist travel to your chest and rest there for a brief moment, filling your lungs with fresh, cool air. As the comforting fog envelops you, let the tension of the day melt away into the room around you. Feel as the heaviness in your heart evaporates, becoming part of that orb of fog. Feel as your lungs open up more and more, allowing you to breathe more slowly and deeply. Follow the orb of fog as it travels down each leg, starting at your hips, then your knee, and finally your feet. Feel as your knees unlock and settle into a comfortable position. Feel as any aches or pains in your joints dissipate, like they were never there to begin with. And with this tension melting away, feel your whole body enter a new state of relaxation. The peaceful little orb hovering over your head slowly unfurls, blanketing your room in a soothing layer of snow-white fog, like a cool, serene sauna just for you. Now that we have taken the time to unwind and find comfort in the space that we are in, here and now, let us begin our story. The mountains deep within the countryside were said to be some of the most beautiful in all the land. They were peaceful mountains, miles and miles from the nearest town. You could not hear the laughter, nor talk of men when you disappeared into its evergreen groves, sat by its still waters, or laid your weary head in its fields, flourishing with wildflowers. It was a place to escape, a place of respite where nothing in the outside world mattered, a place where no one would find you if you simply wanted to go somewhere and be without bringing the expectations of others along for the journey with you. And because these mountains were such a serene place, untouched by the struggles of men, it was a place where those who possessed magic long traveled to. And perhaps one of its most frequent visitors was none other than Zeus himself. As often as he could, he would travel down to the mountains, escaping his obligations as a god and as a husband. He would join the wood nymphs, who always welcomed him with jovial smiles and gifts of gratitude. They would embrace the god the moment he set foot on the mountain, and would introduce him to the peaceful, joyful life that they all lived. They would bring him to the flower-filled meadows, where they would lie in the tall, silky grass, breathing in the sweet aroma of the flowers and reading long, flowing poetry to one another. They would watch as the petals drifted by on the nectar-tinged breeze, dancing as if nature was putting on a show just for the nymphs and Zeus. They would take him to the waterfalls that dotted the high, lush cliff sides in the region. There, they would embrace Zeus as the cold mountain water ran over them, its gossamer filling the surrounding air, giving a home to rainbows that would often shimmer and appear before their very eyes. They would sing songs there, giggling and laughing throughout the whole day. Sometimes they would play games in the forest, zipping, and frolicking through the thick leaves with smiles on their faces, trying to hide from one another. But truly, there was only one person they needed to hide from, and that was Hera, the wife of Zeus. She was, rightfully so, a jealous goddess, and soon she caught wind of Zeus's escapades down in the mesmerizing mountains. She began to travel down to the mountains whenever her husband could not be found back home. And when she did, the nymphs knew they had to do something to protect themselves and avoid being caught. Hera was not known for being particularly understanding, nor was she forgiving of those who spent time with her husband. It was a young nymph named Echo who was tasked with protecting the other nymphs from Hera's wrath. Anytime Hera traveled down to the mountains, Echo would step in her path with a smile on her face. Echo was perhaps the most charming out of all the mountain nymphs. She was a woman of absolute beauty and grace, but it was her personality that drew everyone to her. She had a way with words, the ability to draw people in and make them feel special about themselves, a way to invite them to experience life with her in an entirely special way. And so, people loved Echo, and for quite some time, Hera was no different. Every time Echo stepped in her path, Hera was enthralled with her. Echo would chat for hours about everything and nothing, her melodic voice soothing Hera, and her charming stories causing her to laugh, cry, and be truly vulnerable. And Echo genuinely enjoyed her time talking with Hera, though it began as a ruse. She came to look forward to the goddess's visits down to the mountains. But soon, Hera caught on to Echo's task at hand. When they rounded a corner into a vibrant glade one fine day, Hera caught sight of the nymphs running away, trying to escape being seen with her husband, who was lying in the cool grass with a smile on his face. Hera was devastated, not only by her husband's betrayal, but by what she perceived as Echo's betrayal. She turned to Echo with anger and bitterness and power spiraling in her beautiful green eyes. She raised her hands over the nymph and, with magically charged words, she told Echo, "Your tongue has made a fool of me. Henceforth, your words will be more brief. You will always have the last word, but never the first." With that, Hera disappeared, taking her husband with her. Echo felt something shift inside her chest, like a piece snapping out of place and forever getting lost. "Are you all right, Echo?" one of the gentle wood nymphs asked, finally summoning up the courage to emerge from the woods. "Echo," Echo responded. She blinked in surprise, placing a soft finger to her chest, wondering how words she hadn't intended to say had sprung from her lips. "Echo, what is the matter?" another wood nymph asked. She laid a hand on Echo's cheek, looking into her eyes with sincerity and concern. "The matter," Echo replied. The wood nymphs all came around her, wanting to aid their friend. It was then that they realized what Hera's curse had meant. Echo would never be able to say anything except for the final words that came from another's lips. There was a period of mourning then. The other wood nymphs longed for Echo's tales and stories. They missed her beautiful singing and the charming way she spoke of the beautiful world around them. On occasion, the nymphs would gather by the very waterfalls that they had once bathed with Zeus, and there they would sing, softly and slowly, taking it word by word, so that Echo could sing along with them. They would do this for hours, simply to have the opportunity to hear her beautiful voice echo off the canyon walls and dance between the trees once more. For quite some time, life carried on as usual, though Echo missed expressing herself and singing. She tried to find peace and comfort in her life in the mountains. She still collected flowers and danced with her friends and slept by crackling bonfires under starry night skies. This went on for months and months, until memories of her life, while she still had a voice of her own, were faint. But life in the mountains changed eventually. There was a town miles and miles away, a simple town of stone streets, a craftsman town full of pottery and art and vibrant woven cloths, all knitted together to create the fabric of the community. And within this town was a man named Narcissus. From his birth, he was one of the most popular, beloved people in town. He had high cheekbones, flawless skin, and breathtaking blue eyes that others frequently got lost in. His hair was golden and shined in the sun, casting a golden glow on the world around him, everywhere that he went. Because he was so beloved, Narcissus was not treated like those around him. He was viewed as somewhat of a god, a beautiful man, too beautiful to belong to any of the women in town. He was so beautiful, in fact, that anyone who looked at his face would fall madly in love with him. It would start with a feeling of warmth that would rush over their bodies like a cerulean wave. The rest of the world would fade away as they gazed upon his face. There were no other people, no words, no music, no breeze whispering through the trees next to them. All that existed was him, the beautiful boy with the golden hair. Their hearts would begin to beat in pace with his, as if they were tied together now, meant to be with one another. But because every woman in the town was in love with him, Narcissus did not know true love. He felt too high and mighty, too narcissistic to love anyone but himself. And so he lived a lonely life, surrounded by people who were infatuated with him, but would never truly know him. One day, the men in this town decided it was time to traverse to the mountain far, far in the distance. Narcissus accompanied them, and, for the first time, he entered the woods. He was not a man who found any particular beauty in nature, nor was he a man who was fond of spending his time with other men. As they settled in to camp for the first night, Narcissus wandered off into the woods, thinking himself too important to have conversations with the other men. He walked along a simple, winding dirt path littered with leaves of amber, green, and fiery red. It was peaceful here. The birds chirped overhead, even louder as he passed, as though they, too, could see his beauty. It wasn't long before Narcissus realized that he was lost. The path had disappeared from beneath his feet long ago, and he was in the center of the lush forest with nowhere to go. Little did he know he wasn't alone. In a grove of trees nearby, Echo caught sight of him. It was the first time the forest had ever had visitors aside from Zeus and Hera, and she found herself wondering what this could mean for her future and the future of the mountain. She brushed leaves aside as she made her way toward the man. She could only see him from behind, but what she saw made her heart stop. He had a muscular build with soft, woven clothes that clung to his skin. Sunlight filtered through the trees and lay across his strong back, casting patterns that moved as he did. Unable to speak to him, she followed behind him for quite some time, simply watching in peaceful silence. He seemed frustrated as he wandered through the woods, and as afternoon began to sweep its cold hand over the forest, a mist laced through the trees around him. He looked almost like a painting, a man alone in the woods, standing in a grove of trees and surrounded by a thick blanket of fog. For a moment, Echo sat next to a tree and simply breathed him in, observing him like the piece of art that he was. And it was then that he turned toward her. She was obscured by a lush juniper bush sprouting from the ground before her, but peering through the fragrant branches, she could see him. As his eyes swept in her direction, and as she took in his face for the very first time, life as she knew it changed. He was, without a doubt, the most beautiful thing she had ever seen in her entire life. At once, a warmth of affection and love washed over her. Her mind was enveloped with thoughts of what could be. In that single moment, she could see it all laid out before her. She could see her life with him, the two of them, waking up in a cabin in these beautiful mountains together, cooking breakfast over a crackling fire as the morning sun painted the mountaintops blue and pink and gold. She could see them eating their breakfast, wrapped in one another's arms, as the birds began to rise from their nests, shaking off their slumber and singing their words to awaken the rest of the world. She could see them wandering through the woods together every day, stopping by gentle streams to bathe together in the cool mountain water, standing beneath waterfalls and laughing as they held one another under the slowly cascading water. She could see them lying in fields of wildflowers, his strong hands weaving a crown of flowers just for her head. She could see them curling up in bed at night, their fingers intertwined as they watched the stars sweep across the night sky. They would listen to the sounds of the forest falling asleep, the crickets chirping into the night air, the wind whistling through the leaves just a bit louder, the jackals and foxes howling in the far distance, singing a song of their own to the crystal clear night air. And as she saw all of these scenarios in her head, she fell more and more in love with each fantastical moment. She shook this dreamy facade from her head, returning to the reality at hand. Narcissus was walking away from her now, continuing his journey through the forest. She felt a tug at her heart, as though the universe was telling her she needed to be with him. Blindly, with only him in her view, she followed him deeper and deeper into the woods. With every quiet step she took over the beautiful forest floor, she fell more and more in love. She felt as though she knew him, as if she knew the story of the spring in his step, knew the reason why he always kept his right hand clasped at his waist, knew the reason he paused to brush his hair back and smiled ever so slightly every time he did so. This continued for several hours. Narcissus was lost, and yet he had utter confidence that this challenge was not too much for him. He felt that he could find his way back home with ease. After all, he was Narcissus. And as those hours dragged on and on, Echo followed. But the more time passed, the more careless she became of concealing herself in the trees. The love she had for this man was so overwhelming that it seemed her body had no room for anything else. Finally, Narcissus stopped for the night. He had an inkling that there was someone in the woods with him, but he did not fear. He settled down at the base of a beautiful willow tree, making his home for the night under its flowing tendrils. Echo settled nearby, nesting in the branches of a gnarled lilac bush with heavy flowers that peppered the grass at her feet. She could see him from there in her fragrant hideaway. She watched as he lit a fire for the night. As the sparks emerged into the dark night air, she felt as though the breath had been sucked from her lungs. The warm glow of the fire illuminated his face, making him look even more beautiful. He was ethereal, like an angel the gods had placed upon the earth just for her. It was almost unbearable how perfect he was. Echo longed to kiss his plush lips, to hold him close, to run her hands through his golden mane and whisper poetry into his ear. Had she not been cursed, she would have approached him hours ago, but the fear of her curse driving him off was sowed deep within her, just as Hera had hoped all those months ago. That night, as Narcissus slept, Echo crept a little closer to him, desperate to get more of a look at this angelic man. She watched in awe as his chest rose and fell, rose and fell, rose and fell, rose and fell. And with each breath he took, she felt more enamored with him. She desperately wanted to kiss him, but knew she could not. Instead, she placed some lilacs by his head and returned to the bush, hoping that the gift would be well received. That night, she hardly slept, and when she awakened to Narcissus tucking the flower she had laid by his head behind his ear. The purple petals popped against his golden hair, and Echo felt even more longing just being near him. Wanting to find his way back to the village, Narcissus continued on his way. Echo thought it would be just like yesterday, a journey through the woods, trailing behind her beloved. But that day was different. The fog in the forest was thick, and though it brought beauty with it, it also brought a sense of mystery, of fear that anything could happen. Narcissus's confidence waned as he traversed the woods, and Echo's footsteps became crystal clear to him. As they wandered into a stunning swath of forest, chock full of birch trees, Narcissus stopped. He turned on his heels, his eyes wide with worry. And then he spoke for the first time. "Who is here?" he asked, his voice wavering in the slightest. Echo clung to those 3 words in utter awe. Even his voice was beautiful, like melodic poetry. She hid behind a nearby tree, her heart thrumming against her ribcage as she took in the sight of her beloved. "Here," Echo replied. Her words were bright and airy, fueled by the overwhelming love and affection she had for Narcissus. Narcissus looked around in confusion, but there was a spark in his eyes. Echo's voice, even though controlled by the curse, was just as beautiful as it always had been. "Who is here?" he asked again. His words were stronger this time, tinged with more curiosity than fear or concern. "Here," Echo chimed again. She wrapped her hands around the bark of the birch tree before her, wishing that it was Narcissus she could hold instead. "Who are you?" Narcissus called out. "Come to me." He began to tiptoe around the woods, looking in bushes and behind trees in search of the mysterious source of the voice. Echo tiptoed around him, keeping herself hidden the way that only wood nymphs can. "Come to me," she sang. Narcissus grew frustrated with this game. He settled into the center of the forest, his arms crossed over his chest as he glanced around, eyes narrowed. He thought perhaps it was the forest playing a trick on him. He had read stories of creatures in the woods tricking people. So, eager to get to the bottom of it, he called out once more, "Who are you? Let us meet." The last 3 words set Echo's heart ablaze. Her love, the man she had been following for a day now, he wanted to meet her. He wanted that future with her, the cabin in the woods, breakfast over a fire as they watched the sunrise paint the landscape around them. Lazy days beneath waterfalls, laughing and singing in one another's company, sleeping beside one another every night. Echo couldn't endure living in the fantasy on her own anymore. She burst out from her hiding place, her arms outstretched, ready to embrace the love of her life. "Let us meet," she cried, smiling from ear to ear. She was overjoyed that he finally wanted to meet her. She had never felt so happy in her life. But Narcissus was shocked to see the nymph. As her arms wrapped around him, he pushed her away in shock. At home, no one dared to touch him. Angered and horrified, he snapped at her. "Take off your hands. You shall not fold your arms around me. Better death than such a one should ever caress me." Echo stood in the forest before him, crestfallen. "Caress me," she replied against her will. Distraught at his rejection, Echo disappeared into the forest, leaving a trail of tears in her wake. She found her way to a cave high in the mountains, a lonely place where she could drown in her sorrows over her lost love and reflect on what her life had become. Had Narcissus not been a cruel man, he might have learned to love Echo. And had Echo not been cursed, she might have shown Narcissus how to love another. But fate was often unkind to the Greek gods and goddesses and nymphs that came before us. Narcissus wandered through the woods, distraught by his strange encounter. It was there that he discovered a pool of water that seemed to glow in the sunlight. It was undisturbed. Not a single animal drank from the cool water. Not a single leaf had fallen upon its glassy surface. Narcissus lowered himself down to take a sip of the water, and as he did, he saw the most beautiful sight before him. It was a man with high cheekbones and brilliant blue eyes, a man of beauty and grace, a man that looked as though he had been carved from marble for the gods themselves to enjoy. And it was at that moment that Narcissus fell deeply, madly in love. He was spellbound by this man in the water. This man he had never seen before. He leaned down, trying to kiss the man, only to realize that it was his own reflection. But love is strong, and love for oneself can be one of the strongest loves on earth. Narcissus lay by the water in a trance for days on end, enamored with his own reflection. As more and more time passed, he wasted away until one night he disappeared. In place of his body grew a breathtaking flower, a flower with a golden center and stark white petals that reminded the nymphs of the snow. Echo, too, disappeared, though part of her remained, her voice echoing people's words back to them in the beautiful mountains. I hope you have enjoyed this story, and it has brought you a night of peaceful, restful sleep. Please join me again tomorrow for another sleep story. Until then, sweet dreams.